Hello and welcome to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. This is our Tuesday map day where we get to go into some details. And oh my goodness, did you catch Victoria's tease about what she's covering today? I can't wait to hear it. Victoria?
Okay, guys, so I've gotten a few questions about what does narrative distance look like in a text. You may recall when I first broke it down last week, I talked to you about how there were three different areas where you might employ narrative distance. It could be psychically in terms of how close the character is to the reader. It could be temporally in terms of space. Are you working close within space or far away? Or it could be actual space itself, spatiality. Are we right over the character's shoulder and seeing what they're doing? Or are we looking at them from across the yard and we just get broad strokes of what's going on? So those are your three major buckets. Now, let's break that down in text and see what it actually looks like. I made reference to John Gardner's book, The Art of Fiction. I absolutely love his writing theory. I leaned heavily into it when I was in college first studying writing theory. But what I found as I've gone down the rabbit hole of really diving into the theory of the last 30 years is things haven't changed much. So that's good news for us because number one, we can learn from the masters, and number two, we can start innovating in the modern context, which is the revolution that I'm leading. So let's see how Gardner puts his spin on narrative distance. In the first example, this is from far away. This doesn't give you that close-in psychic closeness that you're looking for. This takes us from a further out view. The sentence says, "It was winter of the year 1853. A large man stepped out of a doorway." Okay, so what does that information tell us as the reader? It grounds us in a year, which is good, but it's 1853. Which is a long time ago. And then it just tells us a large man steps out of a doorway. So you only have two anchor points, the guy and the door. We don't know, is this the door of a home? Is it the door of a shop? Is it the door of a spaceship? We have no idea. So this is all far away, right? You have very few details and a whole lot of distance between you and the information that you're given. Now, let's move that in a little closer. The second example is Henry J. Warburton had never much cared for snowstorms. Okay, so now we have someone's name, but it's not Hank, it's not Henry the gardener, it's Henry J. Warburton. So there's still distance. Why? Because it's a formal name. We're not given a nickname like Hank. So we're still keeping that reader at a bit of a distance using a formal full name. We're also given he never much cared for snowstorms. So if we use the information that we know, which is it's a long time ago and the man stepping out of a doorway, now we have his full formal name and we know he never cared for snowstorms. We don't know if it's still snowing. We just have a little bit of action and this guy's name. So it brings us a little bit closer in, but not a whole bunch. Now let's look at the third example. Henry hated snowstorms. That's it. Doesn't ground you at all. There's no scene. There's no formality. We're not anchored in time. We're not anchored in space. We just know that Henry has this heavy feeling, which is hatred for snowstorms. So see how that information is getting divided up in different ways just based on the distance between the reader and what the character's doing or what the narrator is telling? That's three really good examples. Now let's look at a fourth one. God, how he hated these damn snowstorms. Okay. So we throw in a curse word, we exalt to the holy, but we're still just railing against the weather. So we don't have a person, we just have he. Well, who's he? It doesn't tell us. So again, dividing that very same information up, but in a very different way. And by throwing in that little curse word, we're giving it a hint of informality. Right? We're bringing this thing right down to earth. He hated this stuff. So by injecting that little bit of anger, that little bit of fire, you're putting an entirely different spin on the formal, full-named guy who steps out of the doorway, right? The final one is the closest in. So if the first example was very far out distance-wise, the final one is very close up. Snow. under your collar, down inside your shoes, freezing and plugging up your miserable soul. Now, that is what we call psychically close because we're cold, we're uncomfortable, and our soul is miserable. Now, we still don't know the character yet because it doesn't tell us. Is it a man? Is it a woman? We don't know what's happening, but we know there's snow and misery. So there's 5 really good examples of going from a far away distance to a much closer distance and how you simply move the words around that you choose to introduce that scene so that you can either pull your reader into the coldness and the misery, or you can zero out to this formal guy somewhere in a doorway in the snow. So that's all I'm going to give you today, because when we get to next week, we're going to break this stuff down into our Zettelkasten. I'm going to give you some ideas for how that might work. And then when we get to writing week, we're going to have some real fun. So with those 5 short examples, I will throw it back over to Kathleen.
Wow, thank you so much, Victoria. That makes it so much more concrete for me. It really helps nail it down and makes it something that I could probably actually work with in my writing. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to focus in on courtesy. Shall we get very close in narrative distance, or shall we stay further back? See if we can practice that while we're talking about courtesy. Why not? Why not have the fun of it? All right, courtesy. We've already talked about the definition. We compared courtesy to last month's trait, which was affability. Affability was just putting on a pleasant face to the world as a whole, but courtesy is a one-on-one interaction with anyone. It could be a family member, a coworker, or a total stranger, and it's just plain being nice and following the norms of society that make social interaction pleasant. Well, now today we're going to take it in and look at the problems of a loss, a state of courtesy, and some of the victory state of courtesy. So we're going to start with the loss so we can end up on victory, because it's always fun to end up on victory. Well, let's take a look at the loss states, because courtesy has a couple, 2, 3, 4, maybe different kinds of loss states. It's rather interesting in this way. Let's take a real simple one. You have the person who's just Mr. Business, doesn't know much about courtesy, doesn't think much about courtesy. It's just do the job, do the job. You can picture someone standing at a counter, maybe in some kind of a government office where you've got to come there for the kind of business that you've got to do. You know, maybe it's filing a building permit or something like that where you have to go there. There's no formality. There's no Mr. Niceness. It's just check the box. This one's filled. This one, you didn't put anything on this line. Okay, this is going to have to go back to you. You want to fill this out right now, or do you want to wait and send it in and have it slapped back in your face? Uh-oh, now we slipped a line. We did 2 things. One, we were back far. We were talking about the clerk, and he was being very formal and very practical. He wasn't being courteous, but he wasn't being rude either. And then all of a sudden we zoomed in front. Do you want to fix this right now, or do you want to wait and get this slapped back in your face? Oh, now we've crossed a line. We're up close and personal, and he's being rude. That's 2 different kinds of lost states of courtesy. One is just businesslike, and you can live with it. You know, the guy is doing his job, you know. The other one is actually crossing the line and being a little bit rude. Let's take another kind of lost state of courtesy. This one is really, really interesting because we're going to take a person who wants to be courteous, who desires to be courteous. The thing he most wants of all is to be courteous, but he just doesn't get it. Was he not raised in a family that had any courtesy? Or maybe he comes from a different culture and the nature of courtesy is very different from the culture that he came from. So this person might be very clumsy in the courtesy and might make people, huh? People might be thrown off by the strangeness of this person and not understand. Well, one possibility is in some cultures, close talking is very common. So now we have distance again. Bring the distance forward, and they're just like right smack in your face, and it's like, oh, can I have some personal room, please? That feels so discourteous being up so close. Well, that person might not have the faintest notion that in our culture that might not feel fully courteous. So, and one of the things about the ability to play with courtesy, unintended discourtesy, can be very comedic. It's not very nice in a way because you're kind of making fun of somebody, but you can set up some pretty funny scenes. You can have someone, for example, maybe the person is at a hotel and there is a formal wedding. I was once at a hotel for we were staying there for my niece's wedding. My niece's wedding was not at the hotel, it was a church, but we were staying at the hotel. And when we came down to breakfast, there were all of these people in Indian garb. There was a big Indian wedding taking place at the hotel. Well, we didn't intrude in any way. It was just delightful to see the beautiful, beautiful garb, and everybody was very nice to the people in the lobby. You could set up a scene where somebody stumbles in to the Indian wedding and he's in the wrong place and he doesn't know where he's supposed to be and where's the wedding he's supposed to be at, where's the reception he was supposed to be going to. You could have a lot of fun with playing with courtesy. So those are our lost states. So they can be rather playful or they can be downright rude. And there's another aspect of courtesy that can just be pointedly rude. And I don't like to dwell there, so I'm only just going to mention it. And that is, people when someone is dismissive of another person for whatever reason, because they're different in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, oh, you don't belong. And that's very pointedly rude. That's another lost state of courtesy. So now let's throw it over to the victory side of courtesy. Well, the victory side of courtesy is, of course, being pleasant to everyone, holding the door if someone's coming through, pulling out a chair, maybe in some cases. It's just being nice. Good morning. How are you? In the elevator with a stranger, have a nice day when they leave. Just the pleasantries that make life smooth and simple and delightful. The interesting thing about courtesy is that it can become a complete habit. It can become something that your character doesn't even have to think about. If your character is very practiced in courtesy, it will just come out as part of the normal life and the normal conversation. And so it's a little bit of a disappearing character trait because it doesn't have to take space in your character's mind if he's routinely courteous. So let's see if we can play with the ideas of the lost states and the victory states of courtesy. And next week, we'll talk about how can we categorize our examples of courtesy and store them in our Zettelkasten. So that will be in our Zettelkasten week. Anything to add, Victoria?
Oh, that was fantastic. I love the idea of the trait of courtesy becoming habituated. There's so much ground you can cover there if you play with that. If you think about if someone has taken this on as how they are as a character and it's just how they move through the world naturally, you're exactly right. How energizing or funny could it be for a scene to have that suddenly become unhinged? Or even better, what can you reveal about a change in a character if all of a sudden that's not their habit anymore? What does it indicate when all of a sudden that is stripped away because of something that's happened? They've had an attitude change. I mean, there's a million ways you can go with that. So I love it. I just love it. That ability for something to become habituated and to then show a shift or a change when something is all of a sudden different and they aren't acting that way. It could be something nefarious. It could be a terrific red herring. You just never know. That's why playing with these things is so much fun. So whether you're looking at toggling those character traits around, or you're playing with narrative distance, or you're combining those things together, I encourage you to do your homework and mess around with this stuff on the page. Throw a character into a situation and see what happens when you write them through it and out of it. You never know. If people want to hang out with us or find out more, Kathleen, where would they go?
They would go to LiLLiPub.org. That's where we hang out when we aren't here in YouTube land. Come on over to LiLLiPub.org. Oh, do we have some good things. The top of our menu is our Saturday writing call. We have a whole spot where you can post your own writing and you can review the writing of the others who've posted. And we just help you workshop your writing and just bring it up to a whole nother level over at LiLLiPub.org. We also have over there a circle for Zettelkasten and a circle for character traits, so you can get more information about just about any topic on writing. And you can always just hang around the library because we have a lot of fun there just sharing what's going on in our lives. And it's such a pleasant. If you ever wanted to have a social networking community where you could come in and just count on a pleasant experience, you will find it at LiLLiPub.org. Hope to see you there. Bye bye.